On December 1st, 1948, a man was found dead on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, South Australia. He had no identification, no wallet, no labels in his clothing. 77 years later, we still don't know who he was or how he died. This is file number 47. The Somerton Man case is often described as one of Australia's most enduring mysteries. But before we explore what happened, we need to understand what was recovered and what wasn't. The body was discovered at 6:30 in the morning by two men walking along Somerton Beach, just south of Adelaide. The man appeared to be in his 40s. He was well dressed, a white shirt, tie, brown knit pullover, and a gray-brown double-breasted coat. His shoes had been recently polished. He was leaning against the seawall, head resting on the concrete, one arm extended, legs crossed. To passers-by, he looked like someone sleeping off a night of drinking. But he wasn't sleeping. Police were called. The body was taken to Royal Adelaide Hospital, where a post-mortem examination was conducted the following day by pathologist Dr. John Barclay Bennett. What the examination revealed was unusual. The man's stomach was filled with blood. His spleen was enlarged to roughly 3 times its normal size. There was congestion in his brain, liver, and stomach lining. His heart showed signs of acute vascular issues. Dr. Bennett's conclusion? The signs pointed to poisoning. But no poison was found in the man's system. There were no needle marks, no bruising consistent with a struggle, no signs of violence. The cause of death was listed as unknown. Now here's where the record begins to fracture. The man carried no identification. His pockets contained a used bus ticket from Adelaide to Glenelg, an unused second-class rail ticket, a pack of chewing gum, cigarettes, and a comb. All the labels in his clothing had been removed. Not torn, removed. Carefully. His fingerprints were taken and circulated. No match. Dental records were examined. No match. Photographs of his face were published in newspapers across Australia. No one came forward. For weeks, the body remained unidentified in the Adelaide morgue. And then, something was found. January 14th, 1949. 6 weeks after the body was discovered, a railway baggage handler in Adelaide came forward. He'd been working at the train station on November 30th, the day before the man died. He remembered an unclaimed suitcase. The suitcase had been checked into the station cloakroom. No name, no tag, just sitting there. Police retrieved it. Inside, they found clothing: trousers, shirts, a dressing gown, slippers. Again, most of the labels had been removed. But 2 items hadn't been fully erased. A laundry mark, Keen, and another, T. Keen. Police believed they had a lead. They searched records for anyone named T. Keen. They checked missing persons databases. They contacted immigration offices. Nothing. Eventually, they did find someone named T. Keen who had stayed in Australia. But he was alive, accounted for, and his belongings were intact. The suitcase, it seemed, was a dead end. But there was something else inside. A stenciling brush, a screwdriver, and a pair of scissors, the kind used for cutting fabric. No poison, no weapon, just tools. The suitcase raised more questions than it answered. and the body remained unidentified. April 14, 1949. 4 months after the man's death, a reporter named Frank Kennedy contacted police. He'd been covering the case since the beginning, and he'd received a tip. A man had come forward claiming he'd found a piece of paper near Somerton Beach around the time of the death. He'd kept it in his car, forgotten about it, until now. The paper was handed over to police. It was a small scrap torn from a book. On it, printed in ornate script, were 2 words in Persian: Tamám Shud. It means ended or finished. Police traced the phrase. It came from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a 12th century collection of Persian poetry. Specifically, it appeared on the final page of the book. But here's the problem. The scrap wasn't the full page. It was torn, which meant somewhere there was a copy of the book with a page missing. Police issued a public appeal. They asked anyone who owned a copy of the Rubaiyat to come forward. And someone did. July 23, 1949. A man walked into a police station in Adelaide. He said he'd found a copy of the Rubaiyat in his car, which had been parked near Somerton Beach the night before the body was discovered. The car had been unlocked. He didn't know how the book got there. Police examined it. The final page had been torn out. The tear matched the scrap found in the dead man's pocket. This was the book. But there was more. On the back cover, someone had written 5 lines of letters in pencil. Capitalized. No spaces. The code has never been solved. Cryptographers, code breakers, intelligence agencies. No one has definitively cracked it. Below the code was a phone number, crossed out but still visible. The phone number led to a woman. Police interviewed her. She said she didn't know the man. She'd once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat, but she'd given it away to an army officer during the war. She couldn't remember his name. The officer was never found. The woman was never publicly identified. In case files, she's referred to only as Jestyn. The trail went cold again. June 1949. A plaster cast was made of the Somerton man's head and upper torso. It was placed on display in the South Australian Museum, hoping someone might recognize him. No one did. In 1958, the body was buried in West Terrace Cemetery in Adelaide. The gravestone reads, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach." For decades, the case sat dormant. Theories circulated. Spy, smuggler, rejected lover, but no evidence supported any of them. Then, in 2009, a professor named Derek Abbott from the University of Adelaide began investigating the case using modern forensic methods. He tracked down Jestyn. Her real name was Jessica Thompson, though she later went by Jo Thompson. She had died in 2007. Abbott interviewed her daughter. He examined photographs. He pursued DNA testing, but for years there wasn't enough genetic material to work with. May 2021. South Australia's Attorney General approved an exhumation of the Somerton man's remains for the purpose of DNA testing. The grave was opened. Samples were taken. July 2022. A forensic genealogy company announced they had identified the Somerton man. His name, they said, was Carl Webb, an electrical engineer born in Melbourne in 1905. But here's where the file becomes unclear. The identification was based on DNA matching and genealogical records. However, South Australia police have not officially confirmed the findings. The case remains technically open. Some researchers dispute the identification. They point to inconsistencies in the timeline, the physical description, and records of Charles Webb's known movements. Others accept it as the closest answer we're likely to get. So we return to the gaps. If the man was Charles Webb, why were all his labels removed? Why was the book placed in a stranger's car? Why was his stomach full of blood, but no poison detected? What do the 5 lines of code mean? Who was the army officer who received the book from Jessica Thompson? And why, if this was simply a man who died of natural causes, did so much care go into erasing his identity? The autopsy report suggests poisoning, but the toxicology was inconclusive. The suitcase suggests travel, but there's no record of where he came from. The book suggests intent, but we don't know whose. The case doesn't resolve. It just stops. The Somerton Man case remains in the archives of the South Australia Police. Technically open. Technically unsolved. Even with a name, the why and the how remain unanswered. Some files don't close because the truth was hidden. Others don't close because the truth was simply never written down. This is one of those. This is file number 47. If you want to see more cases like this, quietly unresolved and carefully researched, subscribe to the Unfound folder. New files drop every week. Until then, the folder stays open.